Hi, I'm Isaac, Director of Training for Middleby, also a Master Certified Cepessa Technician. Today, we are going to talk about element replacement on this Perfect Fry PFA model. Now we're going to go over how to replace an element in this Perfect Fry PFA. As always, with any repair that involves the power wires, you're going to want to turn off and unplug the unit. The next step is going to be unwiring the element. The element right now is wired into these two terminal blocks right here to the right of the upper contactor. Because this is a single phase unit, it's only critical for the white element wires to go to the L1 white on the contactor and the black element wires to go with the L2 on the black coming off the contactor. So I'm going to go ahead and unwire these. In this terminal block, in order to get the wires to release, you just insert your flathead screwdriver and pull down. If the removal is on top of the wire, like that, or if the removal is on underneath the wire, you're going to go the opposite direction. Now, these wires right here, it doesn't matter where they go back in the terminal block as long as the whites go to the left side and the blacks go to the right side. Try to get these out of the way here. This is also where you would ohm your element to find out if you had any open windings. Next, I'm going to remove my temperature probe wires here, just some spade terminals. Now that I've gotten my temperature probe removed as well as my element wires removed from the terminal block, I am going to work on removing the set screw right there that holds that collar on to the element tube. After I do that, I am going to remove 4 nuts. That's going to be right here, and when I remove those two, the bracket and everything will allow that switch to be dismounted. And then the other two are a little tricky. They're right here and also down there. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. I'm going to do the switch stud first. All right, so now that I have the collar loose, I'm going to go ahead and remove my last 2 nuts from the stud. Okay, so the last thing that I have to remove here is I'm going to dismount the high limit, which is located right here. I'm also going to unwire it after I get it dismounted, because the high limit, the temp probe, and the element are all one assembly. If any of those parts fail, you must replace the entire assembly. Now, when I do this, I'm going to try not to uncoil the cap tube here. It just makes it easier to deal with. Also, when you wire the element back or the high limit back up, don't use that. That is a ground terminal. Make sure you get it hooked up exactly how it came apart. Now that I've got that unwired, I'm going to go ahead and pull those wires through out of the way. And we are going to now be ready to move to the front of the unit. Now that we've moved to the front of the unit here, what needs to happen before we can remove the element is we're going to need to remove this stem right here by removing the cotter pin and then pulling the pin out. After that, we're going to need to loosen the set screw here on this collar so that we can slide it to the left there so we can have enough room to maneuver the element out through the front of the unit. I'm sure that you've noticed I've already took the liberty of removing the basket and the fry tank so that we can do this repair. Notice that it is flat on one side. It's only going to go back in there one way. There is only one set screw on this collar. So now that I've gotten it removed, really what we need to do is we need to move the element over to the right to remove it from the hub over here on this left side, and then maneuver it out the front of the unit. You see now that we have that hub exposed, we'll then try to remove it out the front. It can take you a few tries, especially with everything that's connected through the tube here. Now that I've gotten it out of here, I'm going to go back over to the side so that I can work the high limit and other collar through the hole. Now that we're back around to the side here, you can see our hole here, and we're going to want to delicately fish the collar, the wires, and the high limit through our hole into the cavity here. All right, now we can come right out the front with the rest of the element. These wires should follow us right out the front. So now we're going to pull the element out the front of the unit here. What you need to keep in mind when you do this is not letting anything get caught in the hole connecting the electrical components with the inside of the cook cavity. Now that we've unboxed our new element, we're going to begin with the installation by putting it inside the cook cavity here and starting to feed our high limit element wires, temp probe wires, as well as this collar and this bracket into the hole there. So now I've got all of the wires and everything like that through into the electrical compartment. Now I am going to work on the positioning of my element, as well as getting this bracket with the studs welded on it into the proper position. Now that I've got my bracket in the proper position, I'm going to over rotate here, or over extend to the right here, so that I can get this tube onto the housing there. Now we have our element in place where it needs to go. What we need to do now is go ahead, retighten our set screw approximately 5/8 of an inch from the outside, from this side. We just need to tighten that down enough to where it doesn't come off on the left side when it slides over. Now that we've got everything done here on the right hand side, we will work on reconnecting our rod, remembering that it has a flat spot and it will only go in there one way. Now that we've got our rod positioned, we will get our pin inserted and then our cotter pin in there to secure it. Okay, and that wraps up the front part of the element replacement. Definitely want to go ahead and test to make sure that your element is tilting as designed before we move forward with the repair. And obviously you'll want to, when everything's done, get your fry tank and your basket back installed in the front of the unit. For now, we're going to move around to the side to complete the installation. Now that we're back around to the side of the unit to complete the installation, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and reattach my high limit wires together. You'll remember it was the black and the yellow wires, and knowing that this is a switch, it does not matter which side of the switch our wires go on, just make sure you do not use the grounding terminal. Feed it through the hole in the rear of the unit here. Make sure that when you do this, none of your wires are grounded, especially not to the cap tube of the high limit. Fasten the brass screw on the back here, or the brass nut on the back. Now this does not need to be tight because we're screwing metal onto plastic, so just snug it up so it's not going to move. And we can continue with hooking up our new probe wires. You have a 3-wire probe here. It doesn't matter where the reds go. They will only go, as you can see here, both of your reds are female spades and your white is a male spade. So really tough to mess this up. Okay, so we've got everything back together except for mounting our switch, securing the bracket on the outside here, and mounting and resecuring our element wires. I am going to definitely get all of the mounting of the switch and the bracket taken care of so my element wires can stay out of the way while I do that. Here's my set screw for my outer collar, which is going to be important to actuate the tilt switch. While it's loose, I can go ahead and spin it around and get it started before I have to snug it up. What I would do is just always try to get this thing as far, this screw as far screwed in as you can, so you have as little of work to do as possible with the actual wrench. It's a very tight spot. And before I get it secured, I'm going to definitely want to mount this switch bracket right here, exactly where it came out of. One thing I will point out is these are slotted so that you can adjust the switch after it's mounted. Definitely want the switch mounted to where it is in the closed position. Now, when you get it reassembled, it's going to be a little bit tough to realign our terminal block hole here with that stud, so you may have to try to move that stud a little bit in order to get it to reseat back in there. Just like that. Now, these wires right here, it doesn't matter where they go back in the terminal block as long as the whites go to the left side and the blacks go to the right side.